Onward. As much as animation can fully unleash the power of imagination, this movie decided to go back to the realm of classic stories, but with a special twist. Yes, Onward is bringing back medieval-style fantasy, but now modernized to make it more relatable to our contemporary culture. Really? That's it? Is this really what we're going with? But seriously, right when this was announced, it gathered a lot of mixed feelings and uncertainties of how this movie would ultimately turn out. On one hand, it is from Pixar and their track record is still pretty strong, along with having an impressive cast capable of delivering some memorable characters. Then again, as I've presented before, the modern fantasy world that the film is highly promoting is unoriginally weak, and it is from the director of that forgettable Monsters, Inc. prequel instead of one of Pixar's all-stars, so it's hard to say if the adventure will actually be worth it. But now that Ian and Barley are off on the biggest quest of their lives, is the magic still alive to fill this movie with wonder? Or is this like their dad and Pixar only summoned what felt like half a legitimate movie? Let's find out. The story. Not only does the movie return the fantasy to its classic definition, but its story structure is more in the style of Dungeons & Dragons, where Barley and Ian are off on a quest to discover the latter's newfound magic skills and hope to find the Phoenix Gem to finally meet their long-lost dad before the sun sets. I get that it wants to do that to really emphasize on the fantasy theming, but as a story for a feature film, it's honestly pretty weak. The problem with this quest story is that it's noticeably formulaic, especially when it often foreshadows future events in a way that's too obvious. Every step of the way, after they summon the bottom half of their dad, the brothers go to a new location, Ian learns a new spell, or they interact with whoever's there, trouble happens, they go off on a chase scene, and then repeat the process. Because of this repetitive nature, it ends up making the story feel predictable and even a little dull with not much else to support it. The world building isn't really helpful because it tries to make the concept of fantasy in the modern world seem more amazing than it actually is, and the humor isn't that effective either because most of the comedy is from Chris Pratt overacting his way to act like the fearless quest expert. Granted, I'm not saying he's completely bad in this, his subtler times are well done, it's just that he probably shouldn't have been handed the role of the comic relief because his attitude is more annoying than humorous.
Sorry, it's just your stance is, here, chin up, elbows out, feet apart, back slightly arched. Okay, how's that feel?
Great.
Oh, one more thing.
Barley.
Okay.
However, there is one saving grace to the story. One that saved this quest from being a complete waste of time. And that is the heart. Like I said before, the point of this whole quest is for Ian to finally get a chance to meet his dad for the first time. And the movie does a great job to display that motivation and what this moment means for both Ian and Barley, resulting to give strength to their relationship throughout the film and to help the plot feel a bit engaging just to see if they can achieve their goal before time runs out, along with having some moments that could shed a tear from the audience. That and the side plot with the mom and Corey is enjoyable thanks to the strong characters and great performances that are involved there. While the story is the weakest element of the movie, it's hard to hate it when its heart is in the right place. The animation. There is no denying that the animators have done the most they possibly can with what they could work with, even if it wasn't that much. On one hand, it is a great looking feature. The backgrounds are well done to present this suburban town that has a touch of fantasy, while also exploring more mystical, grand areas to show how there was a time when magic was everywhere. And what really adds to the environment is the strong amount of details everywhere to make them lively and immersive. On the other hand though, while greatly executed, it's the concept that holds the visuals back. Yes, the place looks great, but it's just a regular suburban town like the real world, but with a bit of fantasy sprinkled around to make it somewhat different. It's more of a problem here because it wants to be an immersive feature where it transports audiences into this new world. But it's just this world is not all that impressive, especially when it's already been done in plenty of other movies before. Funny enough, the character designs have a bit of the opposite effect. The idea is great to include a lot of fantasy creatures as people like elves, ogres, centaurs, cyclops, pixies, and more, but the issue is when the character designs make them all look the same. With the exception of a handful of characters like Cory, Laurel, and Barley, the creatures look very similar with their round faces and big nose. It's as if the template for each species ended up getting overused, and the most that's done to make them different from one another is minor details like hair and clothing. As for the other animation components, there's not much to complain about and is all around good. The character animation keeps their movements more real, but they do a lot with all the expressive energy in them, and some can have an added bonus of creativity depending on what they are, like the horse body on centaurs or Cory's wings and tail. And as a fantasy movie with a lot of magic, of course the effects are great and are used to full effect whenever a scene calls for Ian to literally do his magic. And with the combination of the two, they make the chase and action scenes surprisingly intense that can grab the audience's attention, especially at the end when it delivers an epic finale. But if there's one thing that is the true highlight of the animation that stands out among the rest, it has to be the dad. Since he's literally just a pair of legs, the animators did an amazing job to present a full personality with only half a body that doesn't have a face or arms to express his emotions. While the concept can disappoint for its lack of creativity, it's still some greatly crafted and nice-looking animation nonetheless. The characters. When looking at the characters on paper, the quest is not all that exciting when the audience is stuck with a cast of boringly generic tropes. However, just like the animators making the most out of a dull concept, it's the people behind the characters that help give them more substance and make the experience a little more worthwhile. Among the cast, Ian is the typical socially awkward protagonist that's also an introvert, complete with the typical socially awkward protagonist character design. Barley, as I've said before, is the annoying comic relief with no fear and knows all about going on a magical quest. Laurel is the boy's mom that goes out to find them to make sure they're safe back home. And Colt is the cop that's Laurel's new boyfriend, who seems like there could be an interesting character there to explore what it feels like to enter in the family as the new father figure, but he doesn't appear as much as he probably should. There are a couple of characters though that are an exception where even their concepts are enjoyable, like how the movie gradually presents the dad as this fun-loving goofball, and Cory is a restaurant owner who's putting herself back into her warrior side that she dropped years ago.
Oh, well, you've come to the right tavern. Table 12. I have the parchment you desire right here. Behold!
Oh, that's a children's menu.
While most don't sound all that interesting at first, again, it's the execution that gives these characters some charm. Especially from the actors that gave out some memorable performances that add a lot more to their personalities, like Tom Holland, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Octavia Spencer. Also, the heart of the movie plays a big factor in upgrading the leads to give them more depth. For both Ian and Barley, their main goal is to meet their father, which not only presents their motivation and backstory that teaches audiences how they grew to become who they are, but the film also explores how this evolved their brotherhood and how their bond strengthened throughout the course of their quest. The movie may feature a cliched cast, but at least it made the most out of its characters to make them as enjoyable as they can be. It may not have much magic to make this a strong movie, but I can't help but appreciate the amount of heart put into it. Onward is a decently enjoyable feature that does make the most out of its uninterestingly boring concept. While the lack of originality does make the writing weak by delivering a formulaic and predictable story and some generic characters, the execution is what helps give the feature the substance it needs to have it be fun, action-packed, and very heartfelt thanks to the animation and the voice acting. My recommendation is that this is worth checking out, but maybe lower your expectations. It's good, but it's definitely not up to the expected standards of Pixar, so forget about the studio behind it and just take it for what it is. Oh, and there is one weird thing to mention about it, and it's not the movie itself, but the short before the movie. No, it's not from Pixar, but instead, it's from The Simpsons, and it's called Playdate with Destiny, which focuses on Maggie meeting a little boy in the style of a classic Hollywood love story. It's not the best short out there, but it is pretty cute in its own way, and I do appreciate that it keeps the tradition of these shorts to have it be all silent, so it is a fun addition to the experience. It was quite a quest to go through this movie, but I guess the treasure was somewhat satisfying.
I definitely remember Dad having a top part.
Oh, what did I do? Hi.